So I've always been a big fan of side-scrolling beat-em-ups. Double Dragon, Final Fight, I loved and played them all. But I was always especially a sucker for the brawlers that were based on cartoon licenses. First one I ever saw was the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade, and it was glorious. I literally could probably have bought my own cabinet with all the quarters I pumped into those machines over the years. There were plenty of others as well. The Simpsons, Turtles in Time, Wild West Cowboys of Mumesa, Bucky O'Hare, and even the impossibly hard Battletoads arcade game. Unfortunately, once Street Fighter II hit arcades in '91, fighting games took over and we saw fewer and fewer good beat-em-ups come along. Thankfully, with digital distribution services like Xbox Live and PSN, the side-scrolling brawler has seen a resurgence in recent years, with quality titles like Castle Crashers and, more recently, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World and Shank bringing the genre back with a vengeance. And even though there's been re-releases of both the TMNT arcade games, I've been wanting to see more new beat-em-ups based on cartoon licenses come along. And while I don't know of any currently in production, I did recently find one from a few years back that I'd somehow missed. While looking through the game selection at Hastings, I stumbled across a used copy of the Family Guy video game for the original Xbox. It was only $5, so despite not knowing much about the game or how it played, I decided to take a chance. And wow, what a great bargain that turned out to be. As I found out, the game is a hidden gem for those who love a good cartoon-inspired smackfest. To start out with, it looks fantastic. It's easily got the best cel-shading render engine I've seen in a video game. All the characters look completely faithful to their TV counterparts, with none of the distortion that tends to make the characters look jarringly unfamiliar in other games. Also, all of the voices are there, and the soundtrack was lifted straight from the series. More than any other game based on a cartoon I've tried, this one really makes you feel like you're playing through an episode. And unlike the similar Futurama game, which in my opinion had a hackneyed script and weak dialogue, Family Guy game nails the trademark humor from the show on every level. It's also chock full of fan service, with pretty much every character from the show's first 3 seasons showing up in one form or another. The sophomore cheap jokes are all there as well, so if you enjoy those on the show, you'll find plenty more of the same here. The game only sports a single-player mode, and it's broken up into 3 largely separate campaigns, one each for Stewie, Peter, and Brian. The game starts off with Stewie seeking to stop his arch-nemesis Bertram from stealing the satellite dish Peter uses to broadcast his pirate TV channel, PTV. Being an evil mastermind, Stewie is given an upgradable blaster, a grappling hook, and, for some portions of the game, a mind control helmet. His levels frequently play out as parodies of other video games, such as a hallway where enemies swoop in like the aliens in the arcade classic Galaxian. Peter's campaign plays out more like a straight brawler in the tradition of Final Fight or Streets of Rage, complete with special moves and combos. The kicker is, just like Fred from the Flintstones, when Peter gets hit on the head, he transforms into one of his other personas from the show, including his black alter ego Rufus Griffin, Prostitute, and the automaton nuclear neo-human android, or Anna as fans of the show will recall. Brian's portion of the game is stealth action, sort of a sillier, cel-shaded Metal Gear Solid. Other than donning the occasional disguise, there isn't much variety to Brian's portion of the game, and I found it to be the least entertaining of the 3. There's still plenty of laugh-worthy moments during those portions of the game, though, so completing it never became a chore. In addition to the main gameplay, there's 18 minigames littered throughout the story which take place wherever the cutaways or flashbacks on the show would normally occur. All of these are references to jokes from the show and are similar in play to the segments from WarioWare titles. They just pop out in the middle of the action, and then, without explaining exactly what you're supposed to do, the timer counts down and you have to figure it out. Completing the game successfully provides a boost to your current character in the form of parts for Stewie's ray gun, snack power for Peter's special moves, or temporary invisibility for Brian. The boss fights you face as Stewie and Peter are both hilarious and satisfying. Peter's final fight, if you'll excuse the pun, in particular comes out of nowhere and is probably the most epic bit of fan service I can recall in a game. Brian, on the other hand, doesn't get a boss battle, just a long, drawn-out joke that's pretty anticlimactic to his storyline. The game is by no means perfect. Some of the platforming in Stewie's campaign is plagued by poor camera angles, particularly in his final boss fight. The controls for Peter's combos also tend to be glitchy and hard to pull off. And as I mentioned, the portions of the game where you play as Brian are pretty one-dimensional and get a bit repetitive. But those negatives did little to detract from the overall fun I had with the game. Despite being a great title, it's little wonder why this one slipped under a lot of people's radar. The game was only released on the PS2, Xbox, and PSP, and didn't hit retail until October 2006. Right around the same time the PS3 and Wii came out, and more than a year after the 360 debuted. And it's a shame that it didn't get more attention than it did, because the game is a worthwhile investment for 6 or 7 of your gaming hours, especially if you like the occasional dose of mindless beat-em-up action in a familiar cartoon environment. It's not long or deep or particularly complicated, but if you enjoy Family Guy and could use a short break for more serious gaming, you ought to pick up a copy on the cheap and try it out for yourself.
We couldn't afford another minigame, so, how about pressing a button? Yeah, do that. Why, you lazy son of a...